to order, resume the meeting, actually. Going to reconvene the meeting, actually. We just recessed from night to night. So if you can stand for a Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, tonight we will get to the budget discussion a little bit later, but we're going to do a quick meeting just because we have missed our normal meeting for this month. So first thing is recognition, and I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Parker.
Thank you, Chair. I am excited tonight. This is always a favorite part of the board meetings for me, where we get to recognize our staff members for all the things that they do. These are our stars of the month. We have 6 stars that I'm going to introduce to you, and I'm going to read a little bit about the person who nominated them, what they had to say about them. So what I would ask is, Daniela, we're going to start with you, Daniela Brooks. If you can come up, and yes, come on up.
Okay, great.
I'm just going to ask you to stand here by me while I read this about you. Daniela is a PE teacher at Sarah Noble, right here. She's a ray of sunshine, as you can see here, and she exudes positivity and a can-do attitude. Furthermore, she is a stellar teacher. She executes thoughtful lessons that engage students in PE classes. She is a pleasure to work with, and our community is lucky to have her.
Thank you.
Here we are.
Thank you.
Because you want to stay on camera. We want you to get all the camera time. All right. Our next teacher is Mr. Daryl Gregory, Scatticoke music.
Nice to see you.
Congratulations. The person who nominated Mr. Gregory is his student, one of the students, and he said, I have Mr. Gregory for concert band, jazz band, and orchestra. I appreciate him very much. With Mr. Gregory, having band can be just okay, and that's never good enough. He always finds a place where we can get better, and he always finds a way to help us reach these goals. That's powerful. Congratulations, Gregory. Good job. So awesome. Our next person, Linda Hurley, is the New Milford High School Food Service head cook. Linda, where's Linda? Tomorrow. Linda was nominated, and the person said she does a great job running the New Milford High School cafeteria, and if you haven't been there, I would encourage you to go visit. It is incredible. She provides delicious food efficiently and pleasantly for the students and staff to enjoy. So we can have a stand-in, I guess, for Linda when we can. Keith, you can stand in when we draw. You'll win the car. Okay?
Good one.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so yeah, one more round of applause for Linda. And next we have Ms. Eileen McDougall, Northville. I've seen Ms. McDougall in action. She's an awesome kindergarten teacher. And this person who nominated her said she is such a kind and warm-hearted teacher. I love to see her students beam as she talks to them. She truly is an advocate for her students and always goes above and beyond to make sure the needs of her kids are met. So congratulations. Thank you. Christine Santarella, New Milford High School special education teacher. Christine says you're an excellent collaborator who works with all team members to ensure maximal success for her students. Congratulations. And finally, Sue Sullivan, Sarah Noble art teacher. And I've been in Sue's, I get to go in all of these classrooms, but it's so fun. You guys pull down a little bit. I want to read about Sue. It says, Sue is an amazing teacher and artist. She is compassionate and empathetic. I have witnessed Sue taking the time to make personal connections with students many, many times. Sue is a gift when it comes to encouraging a reluctant artist and filling them with confidence. Congratulations. You want me to continue on?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
All right. You all get to pick a pen or box. It's a box. And in the box
Keith, you
are
get
gifts.
that?
And one of the
Keith, you're
gifts
gonna miss
has
your
a smiley
big moment.
Better pick a good one.
Oh, Keith? Yeah, it is.
You need like a little case.
All right, so you can pick all at one time, you can wait and pick it. Come on, pick a box. There we go.
Keith, want to switch?
All right, so, we're all stars in our eyes, and as you know, the person who gets the smiley face on their star gets the car from Ingersoll for a month. Did you know that? You get to drive around with the Staff Viewer of the Month car. Absolutely. Ingersoll's not here, but they always give it. Yeah. All right, so you ready? 1, 2, 3. Who has the smiley face?
Good luck, Charles.
Thank you.
Luck, Charles.
Did we get your picture?
We will, we'll call it a break, so we'll get the picture.
That was great.
We're gonna take a 5-minute recess and get some pictures, and there's some refreshments, help yourself, and we will come back.
We need the staff members back up here so we can take their pictures if we can. Keith, you can take a picture.
Call the meeting back to order.
You're welcome.
And we will open with public comment. Anything?
Yes, we have a few people. We'll start off with Heidi Adele.
Hi, good evening, everybody. We learned last week that New Milford is taking some hiring actions in terms of English learners, and I just wanted to applaud you for doing that. I think it's a really good step. And encourage you as well to continue to support the other teachers in their quest for knowledge about helping English learners, simply because it will help all the learners, because it will help the teachers. I think the teachers are very much under a lot of pressure to help all of their students. We saw last week that there are also a few issues with the number of teachers per student ratio and that kind of thing, and it gets tougher when there is an influx of English learners. And I just want to emphasize to keep that in mind, whether it be PD for the high school teachers or additional support for all of the teachers. I think it's really, really important because it's really difficult for the teachers to know what to do. I take this also because I work with English learners where I am a teacher myself in my district, but also because I work with the families of New Milford to help them and to support the teachers. I do my best to contact the teachers in the high school and in other schools when I'm working with English learners and their families, and I really want the teachers to be supported as much as they can so they know how to handle grading and all of the aspects that go into teaching, which is complicated as it is. I just want to make sure that the teachers get as much support as they can, because ultimately it doesn't only help the teachers and the English learners, it helps all the students in the classroom. Thank you.
All right, we have Miss Carolyn Hyde.
Hi there, my name is Carolyn Hyde. I have 3 children here in the New Milford school systems. Just to piggyback what Heidi said, I also work with Head Start here in the school system, and the English learning population is just growing at leaps and bounds. So when I saw that the 2 ELL teachers put on, thank you, Mrs. Parker, so important to continue that work. But I really came to talk about the sporks and how thankful I am to Mrs. Parker, and to Dr. Parker, excuse me, and Mrs. Gallagher, who's in the audience, and Ms. Koval, as well as Ms. Sullivan, for giving these 19 children such an amazing learning experience and showing them that their words have power and that they are genuinely welcome in their school, to have a voice, and to change what we kind of have created for them and are leaving them as a legacy. For everybody who does not know, Mrs. Parker and Mrs. Gallagher supported these 19 kids on a quest to lower the plastic in their cafeteria. And I know my daughter was part of it, and step by step, just Ms. Koval and the enthusiasm that was met was amazing. This is what classrooms should look like. This is what these learners are doing. I fear 23 in a classroom doing something like this at such a young age, but for right now, we're very lucky. My children were born very low birth rates in the state, so they have smaller classroom size. But again, just think about classroom size tonight. 23 kids in a 5th grade class is very different than 23 children in a 1st grade class. So thank you, Dr. Parker, thank you, Ms. Gallagher, and congratulations to the kids in Ms. Koval's 2nd grade class.
All right, Roseanne Petruso.
Good evening. So I've been attending the budget hearings. Unfortunately, I missed last night, but I wanted to first start by commending Dr. Parker, Ms. DeCorpo, Mrs. Olson, and all of the administrators and the staff for really presenting us with the impressive work of our schools. Never have I been more thrilled to have my son be a part of the New Milford school system after hearing these meetings. I'm really impressed with the curriculum. It's been much needed. I think it's impressive. The course offerings that our students have opportunities to attend provide them with meaningful connections to the community, and a variety of course paths based upon their student goals and interests, which is exactly what we're striving to do in education, is personalized paths of learning. So I'm so excited about that. I think I might want to attend high school after hearing some of those things. So I'm really impressed with the work with the businesses. I am also impressed that the budget is showing the value of literacy, and that we are investing in classroom libraries and investing in books for our library and media centers as well. The research shows that the more time that students have with books in their hands, reading different types of texts, that leads to higher reading achievement. So the more we can offer them, the better that they can do. There are some wish fors that I have, and I urge the board to consider tonight. One of the things that I kept thinking and hearing through the presentation was that we do the best we can with what we have. And I think it really should be, we have all we need to do the best we can. And so I'm really thrilled that members of the Board of Finance, Town Council are here tonight and have been attending some of these meetings so they can hear the needs of our students and their educational needs. So I really think that we should look at the class size, especially at first grade. 23 students is a high number. It's also more than the average of districts in our area of 18 to 20 in a first grade class. I also have a concern that there's 30 students in some course sections at the high school. And I understand that there might be contract language saying what the maximum number of students should be in a class, but a contract shouldn't override the best interest of students. I'm thrilled that we're addressing the emotional needs of our students, and with the SEL program that's being coordinated across K through 12. When I shared with you that teachers that expressed their concerns over student behaviors, and as a point of class size concern, today I was reminded in my own school where I teach in a pre-K to second grade school, and our students have really, heavy emotional needs as well. So within the period of an hour today, just to give an example, especially for those of you who aren't in schools and aren't in our classrooms, I had a second grader, break down because her mom died of an overdose, and who lives far away, who abandoned her, and second grade. And then I had another student not too long afterwards who was carrying the weight of a father addicted to drugs, losing his job, and a mother who's sick on her shoulders. These are 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds. And when a child shares that with you, you need to stop what you're doing and you need to listen to that child and you need to provide them the support they need. And when there's so many kids in a class, that's much more difficult to address. And kids today are saddled with bigger problems than we were saddled with, and that we carried on our shoulders as children. I mean, some of their issues are heavier than adults that I know. So I urge that to be a consideration. And I also heard the need for money for sport uniforms. I thought about it today, and I think it's definitely needed. But I was also considering that my 4th grade son could possibly be wearing somebody's uniform from now when he is a senior in high school. So that's kind of gross, right? And concerning, especially if some of them show people's bellies and other things. So yes, please fund that. And the other thing I wanted to say is you're not here tonight to simply look at where we can cut the superintendent's budget. You don't have to cut this budget. You can add to this budget. You probably don't like that, I'm sure, but I would urge you to add to this budget to improve the teacher to student ratio, to make sure that our students go out into the sports domain looking proud, dressed proud of, from where they come from. And whatever budget is finally passed by this board, I urge you to sell this budget. I urge you to think about how can you get people from this community into our schools. I'm thrilled, like I said, that the mayor's here, town council's here, some Board of Finance members are here. How can we get them into our schools? Can we offer them lunch and invite them in and provide a tour? Can you go to senior centers and other groups of interest and present the budget, or have students present it and present all the awesome things that are being done in our schools. I mean, people need to hear this. Like, shout it from the rooftops. Sell this budget. I'll help you sell it to the public. We have a big job to do tonight, and I thank you for all of your work.
Thanks, Roseanne.
All right. Last but not least, Miss Megan Bird.
Good evening. I'm actually speaking on behalf of Amy Fotopoulos, who is home with the flu, as are so many people in the town right now. And she sent me a letter to read, so I will read it verbatim. So, quote, "My name is Amy Fotopoulos, and I reside at 10 Chatfield Road in New Milford. I'm a member of the Board of Finance, but tonight I am speaking to you as a citizen and a parent. I wish I could be there to deliver this in person, but I have the flu, so I've asked this to be read during public comment on my behalf. First, I thank Dr. Parker and all the administration and New Milford Public Schools staff who contributed to the development of the BOE budget for 2021. It's clear that you were diligent in assessing available resources, considering actual costs, and balancing key needs with nice-to-haves. As you deliberate tonight and align on the budget that you will send to the town, I ask you to please consider the below thoughts. Please add in 2 FTE teachers for first grade. Having an additional teacher in each elementary school will mitigate concerns over class size. Current projection of 22.6 means some classes will likely have 23 students, and that number could rise further should we see increased enrollment over the summer. This exceeds industry best practices for elementary school class sizes and is particularly concerning given today's class composition. At the first grade level, there are still children who have not yet been diagnosed with social, emotional, or learning disabilities, which means they don't yet qualify for para support, and they may take a disproportionate amount of time from the classroom teacher. In the past few years, we've seen many important items cut from the BOE budget because they weren't time-sensitive and difficult choices needed to be made to put forward a budget that reflected a modest increase versus the prior year. We cannot continue to do that year after year. I was pleased to see the strategic planning, Portrait of a Graduate, was put back into the proposed budget this year. Developing the strategic framework will help us prioritize choices in the future, and I hope that you will keep this in the budget. Please consider adding New Milford High School sports and/or band uniforms into the budget for 2021. The town is extremely supportive of our athletics program and our winning marching band, and I would expect that they would want to support replacement uniforms considering the ill condition of the current uniforms and with the understanding of how old they are. Thank you for your consideration, Amy Fotopoulos." End quote. And I would also just like to say on a personal note, I will be right there with Roseanne if we can come up with ways to get this out to the public. And educate the public on what's actually in the budget. I know they had 4 opportunities to come and listen on these nights. I know that we've tried this in the past with our past superintendents, and they've had modest participation, but let's go to them. I love the idea of going to the senior center and presenting there. Let's have a luncheon. Let's invite everybody on the town council and the Board of Finance in to actually see inside the school day. And have them come in and take tours while school is in session, and maybe just stand in the office for an hour and hear how many calls actually come in to those office phone numbers. It's a lot. So, but that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to participate in public speaking? Okay, we will close public speaking. I need a motion to approve the following Board of Education meeting minutes, special annual meeting minutes, December 19th, 2019.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Everyone? I need a motion to approve the following Board of Education meeting minutes, special meeting minutes, I'm supposed to say ones. Oh, special meeting minutes, December 19th, 2019.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
I have a comment on that.
Okay,
That's the December 19th, right?
correct, the special meeting, not the annual. Not the election.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so in reallocation of administrative offices, the notes say that I said any capital savings go to the town. That's not exactly what I meant. Capital savings for the Board of Education gets handed to the town as a capital expense. And that's why it would undermine Board of Ed support if that continues to happen.
Can make that notation. Any other discussion? All in favor? Okay. I need a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from January 7th, 2020.
So moved.
Second? I will defer.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thanks, everyone. And lastly, I need a motion to approve the special Board of Education meeting minutes from January 14th, 2020.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay. Superintendent's report.
Thank you. I don't have a report tonight, but I want to once again give my thanks. I truly have a grateful heart for all that our administrators, their departments. It goes so deep for the performance at every level. And in preparing this budget, in preparing answers to questions, the attention to detail of our support staff to make sure that we have the right number of copies and what we need to do. And so I really appreciate the entire administrative team, all the departments, the schools, but most especially the members of the board. I've been so impressed from, doing my homework before I was ever hired, watching board meetings, and your knowledge, your depth of knowledge, your level of questioning, keeping us on our toes, making sure that we're doing our homework, and I appreciate it. And I know that as a team, we try to anticipate, what might they ask you that just makes us better. And so I really do appreciate that your heart is in it, not for you're volunteering so much time for the kids of New Milford. And we visit those classrooms and we go in there, and it's powerful, and it means a lot to me, and I just need you to know that I know this is hard, and I've lived through it, our team has lived through it, and what you have to do tonight I really respect and appreciate, so I just really want to tell you thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve Exhibit A, personnel, certified, non-certified appointments, resignation, and leaves of absences as of January 29th, 2020. Yeah, no board chair report.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Brian, any discussion? Joe?
We're down 2 more math teachers in the high school.
3 children.
Total of 3. How are we coping?
Mr. Chagru has a plan in place for each of those classrooms. There's a variety of teachers that have math teachers that have stepped up and are teaching an extra course to cover that. Some of the classes are doing a virtual school component for those classes, and they're being very closely monitored by the mathematics department chair. The assistant principals are helping out, and the principal. We still have it posted, and we are still looking, but it's a shortage area, and it's every day I get something from one of my colleagues. Do you have a math substitute we can have? So it's across the state.
Across the state.
I just want to add to this that I've heard from students that are very frustrated about the lack of support on those classes, that they have to do it online, and that they're not getting teacher support. So I hope that gets addressed.
I'll share that with Mr. Chagru
Yeah.
and let him look into it.
Any other discussion? Tammy?
Yeah, just a quick question. The English teacher from Scotticoke that resigned, am I to understand we're not going to fill that position for the rest of the year?
No, it's posted and we are looking for it. Again, we have teachers that are helping out in those classes and teaching.
Well, there's a long-term sub in that class, which is why I
Correct.
asked. Okay, so
Yes.
there might be,
I am looking and hopefully encourage that we have got applications coming in. We'll be doing an interview process and hopefully hiring a teacher. But in the meantime, while we have the long-term sub in there, we're also supporting that sub with other teachers helping out.
because I know that sub, the reason I ask is because that particular class has had a lot of inconsistency.
I know.
So I thought that I understood that they were going to let since they have a very competent teacher in there who understands the curriculum in high school, that they were going to let that consistency, to retain some of the consistency that they've lost. So I wasn't aware that we were going to hire that.
We are still trying to contain
Okay.
that consistency. I don't think that you have all of the facts of what's going on here, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but we're monitoring that, and if we can find a certified teacher to come in and fill that position, because the long-term sub can't stay there forever. So we're very conscious of what's best for the kids, and so that's why it's posted, and that's why we're still looking.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? That's everyone. I need a motion to approve monthly reports, budget position dated December 31st, 2019, purchase resolution D 730, and request for budget transfers.
So moved.
Any discussion? Wendy?
Clarification, thank you for getting the report over to us. So on page 404, these numbers, which we had asked about last night, the capital reserve currently does have $661,200 in the account, or no?
No, it does not today.
Okay.
The cell phone there shows that it's pending still a deposit.
Right.
But once that's
But that's
processed-
projected,
Yes.
pending, that's what I meant, I
Yep.
beg your pardon.
Yeah, and that
That was the number
matches
that you
up.
had given last night pending the actual audit and that going into our account.
Yes.
All right, I just want to make sure that those numbers were, that's what you gave out last night, and that's what we see here, so there's no change on that. So I appreciate that. I'm not seeing any line items that particularly jump off. Is there anything you need to call our attention to, Anthony?
No,
Oh, I didn't think so.
particular.
Okay, great. I'm good.
Any other discussion? All in favor? That's everyone, thank you. I need a motion to approve policy 6146, graduation requirements.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? That's everyone. Okay,
Point of order.
yes,
Who is the second on that motion, please?
Eileen,
Thank you.
which who I had, is that who you had, Mrs. Silverman? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, now, I need a motion to approve the superintendent's proposed 2021 budget in the amount of $65,843,593.
So moved.
Can I get a second? Eileen, thank you. Any discussion?
It's Brian and Eileen.
Yes?
I guess I'll start the
Okay,
discussion then.
go ahead.
I'll start the discussion by just, I do appreciate this budget. It is bare bones, and I appreciate it that, and I don't appreciate it that it's bare bones, by the way. But what I'm saying.
We know what you mean.
And I went through this budget very carefully the last few days, and there's not much there if we were looking to cut things, because it's a bare bones budget. And I really appreciated the slide at the beginning of last night's presentation with the items that did not make it to the budget, and that I hope make it to the budget in the future. For example, a social worker. One social worker per building. Today, it's not enough. Special education department chair, half chair. Classroom teacher. There's so many things that didn't make it to the budget that honestly I feel should be in the schools today. So I really hope that these things do make the budget. And tonight I really would like to, if we can find a way to get 2 first grade teachers, if not 1 first grade teachers in the buildings, because 23 students in the building in a first grade classroom is crazy. I teach K through 5 special education, and I can't imagine 23 first graders in the same classroom. And so I looked at it, and I guess I'm going to ask for an amendment to the budget, since I'm the first one to speak here.
Okay.
And I hopefully I would like to amend the budget to add. No, I'm sorry. I'd like to amend the budget by reducing the budget on page 25 in order to try to get the first grade teacher, so at least,
You can add and then take away later if you want
yeah.
to, if you want to do it that way.
Okay, I'll add that. I'll start by adding. I apologize, I'm going to change my wording. I'm sorry, Pat. So I'd like to add to the budget $120,000 to hire 2 first grade teachers. And I would like to speak to that. I mean, I have spoken to it.
Does he have a second?
You'll need a
Oh,
second.
I
on
have a
that.
second.
Okay, Brian and Tammy? And did you want to go back and speak to that?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to speak to it.
Sorry.
And it's not the only way to do it, by adding 2 teachers. I just want to start the conversation by that. I think there are other ways to do it. I think when I was looking through the budget, if there's possibility of maybe transferring a 3rd grade teacher from this school down to 1st grade or 2nd grade or wherever you want to put them in Hill and Plain, or that's a possibility too. So possibly adding 1 teacher and then transferring a teacher, because currently the 3rd grade class here is projected to have 20 students in it per class. If we move one of those teachers out, they would then have 23. 23 3rd graders, if we have to do it. I mean, that's like 23 3rd graders is more manageable than 23 first graders. So, and I really, like I said, I'm in the classroom every day, and 23 first graders, which would very likely become 25 or 24. Some classes will have 25. It's just too much. And
Yeah, I will speak to this. I full-heartedly support adding 2 first grade teachers. I personally would not like to adjust the 3rd grade teacher, only because, those kids are transitioning to a much bigger school. There's a lot more academics that are involved with them, and I think we're going to see increases. I'm very afraid we're going to see increases beyond what we have projected, looking at some of our surrounding towns and what's happening. I also want to say that Mr. Helmus and I had an opportunity to go visit one of our schools this week at Hill and Plain. And it was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. I really suggest that all board members, whether you are new or you're existing, go into our schools. And I'm talking all of our schools. They're all so different, but there's just something so touching with going into a first grade classroom and seeing these, I say it all the time, they're babies. I mean, they're little, and they're coming from so many different backgrounds. Some who have very supportive parents who advocate for them, and unfortunately some who don't. And you have some whose parents work, and so therefore have such little time to support their education at home. And then you have some who do have that support. And Hill and Plain, if I can speak to Hill and Plain for a moment, has a lot of movement happening. They started out, and correct me if I'm wrong, when we approved the current budget that we're in, I think that class size was around 20. They are already up to 23. And they get phone calls every single day adding kids. These classrooms are packed. So as we discuss other possible ways to help these teachers, if that should happen, do understand that 23 now could easily turn into 27 or more next year. And these classrooms themselves can't handle that amount of students. I mean, we saw the little pods that they create for these kids, and they need to have the rug where they go for a certain part of their curriculum. That's very necessary, and you can't disturb that area. And first graders do not walk in a straight line when they are told to go somewhere. They zigzag and are bumping and not. So I mean, to crowd all this furniture in there, even if you had a paraeducator, which again, I really am concerned about whether or not we would be able to hire as many paraeducators as we would need to support these classrooms if we did not go adding a teacher. I also wonder about the cost savings when you start to discuss how many teachers, your paraeducators, you're going to need to support these classrooms. So I really want us to give serious thought about this, especially to our first graders, because that is a lot of kids of that age in a classroom. It can be very problematic for teachers if they have one child one child, identified or unidentified, who has a problem or a crisis, it can derail, they lose instruction time. And I've heard this happen from teachers over and over again, that they have a kid, a lot who are unidentified at that age, where something happens and the instruction stops because they have to deal with that child before that child hurts another member of the class or whatever. So there's a lot going on in these classrooms, and 23 is just too high. And my God, if it turns into 27, I think that's a disaster. So, thank you.
Anyone else like to speak to it?
I'd like to speak to that. I also went on an observation with Dr. Parker, and I also was suitably impressed with the professionalism of the staff at Hill and Plain. Mr. Williams has a really nice touch with the kids, but I saw something a little different than maybe others, in that I didn't think the classroom number, there's no magic number. The staff handled the number, whatever the students were, and there were many of them out on flu, but there was a pair in the classroom, the teacher was instructing, there was small area instruction going on. I really, it was sort of eye-opening to me, because when I went to school, it was 25, 30 kids, and it was just a teacher. But there's a tremendous amount of interaction. Mr. Williams, I saw his, I call it a triage board, but it's how he deploys his resources for the school, and I know that's a lot of hard work. But the juggling and the interaction with that staff and how they work together, I was really impressed. I was suitably impressed. But I don't think there's a magic number. I know people like to focus on 22 or 23 or 24. The other thing I'll say is I'm new to this board. Dr. Parker and her staff have not recommended that additional staffing. I sort of trust that they looked at this really closely and they think they can manage it. And maybe my trust is misplaced, but this is what they recommended. I can't say that I'm, I'm really impressed by the way that team worked. And at this point, I think the number is fine. It maybe need to be adjusted in the future, but that's not what the superintendent and her staff recommends, so I don't think it's necessary at this time.
Anyone else like to speak to it? Eileen?
Okay. Just to be practical, I certainly agree that that number of students in a class is a lot, and we don't know what enrollment is, especially down in Hill and Plain, which seems to be the school that's growing the most in the system here. So to be practical, my thought was to reposition some money, not to cut, not to add, but to reposition some money in terms of the practical arts teacher at Scattycoke. It's $98,526 is that much money for her. And if we could do that, take that, and move that to one of the other teachers, and perhaps go with Brian's thought of transferring one down from here to Hill and Plain, put the other one up in Northville, I think we've got the problem covered. The smaller the classroom, it's always been proven, the smaller the classroom, the more attention, the better the education is for these kids. So taking the practical arts position away, evaluating the situation at Scattycoke, looking what we can add in terms of after-school clubs, paying stipends there, do a cooking class, or a sewing class, whatever they come up with there, and saving that $98,526 and putting that towards a teacher position, and getting that into the two teachers I firmly think we need to provide the best education for the early learners, because that starts their whole career in the education system.
So are you making an amendment to Brian's amendment, or?
That works, yeah.
Well, that was my question, because we have a motion on the floor for one, and what it sounds like you're doing is amending that amendment. So the basic process would be to either vote on the amendment as is, and then come back and you're welcome to introduce it, or amend the conversation.
Which do you prefer?
But
Which do I prefer?
Yeah, what's your amendment?
I think maybe go with the original and then
go back
That's
and
cleaner, we can do that, yes. Okay.
Questions, couple things. The $120,000 for 2 positions, does that include benefits? And if so, what is the total on that? And how are you gauging, how are you getting to that number? Are you going at mid-step with 66 plus, what is the total cost expected for 2 positions?
That's a good question, and so maybe, and I was going to hopefully ask for some guidance from Anthony, but I was thinking like a step 1 position would be
I'm just
around
trying to get a cost
$51,000. I mean, I believe.
So the placeholder that we've used in the budget for ads and deletions so far
66,000?
was 66,968
Plus 20?
for
Plus
her.
20.
Plus 20.
Plus, if this was in the teacher bargaining unit with their cost share on SPP, the benefit amount would be roughly $20,949.
That's what I had. I just want to be clear.
No, I appreciate
So
that.
because the actual motion on the table is closer to $150,000
Yeah.
or 100 and actually higher than that. So not that that dollar amount defines the decision, but I think that everyone should have that information before making it. My point of view is this. I appreciate the conversation. I think you're absolutely right to have the conversation. It was not part of the original budget presentation. I think for me, it's early on in the game to add to the budget 2 full positions of that amount. But I think that you have all seen that we as a board over the last 2 years have gone back and modified positions when we have been faced with that choice. I hope that if we are in that situation, then we do it the earlier the better. I can't support that dollar amount. I totally understand the rationale. I agree that it's not a actual number in a classroom. There are a lot of factors there, but I won't support that amendment.
Fair enough.
Joe?
We have taken a look at this issue as long as I've ever been on a Board of Ed. From the last time I served to this, and classroom size has always been one controversial. And there's no clear indication as to what number works. I mean, would it be ideal for us to have 10 or 12 students in a class? And, you know, probably. So we work with, this board over many years had come up with a number that is a guide or a goalpost, 25 per class. I think up at the high school level with the more advanced students, 25, 30 people in a class isn't an issue. Looking at we never know where our student population is going to go as far as census. But I look at what we have here, our first grade class anticipated for next year is an additional 15, and second grade an additional 26. That's spread out across all the numbers. It is so difficult to determine what's a proper number, but we know we have faith in these teachers to be able to handle students up to our number of 25. At that point, perhaps we look at a difference. But I agree, that kind of number increase with salary and benefits is significant. Our student population across the board has been going down over the last 15 years until we hit this year, and then we leveled off this year. We don't know where next year is going to be. These are all estimates. And I think Ms. Fallenbach mentioned that if we see an unusual increase, which we have in the past, we make adjustments. I was going to speak on the PA issue, but I'll wait. We're on that one more.
Right, no. Olga, you had something?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Brian that we would love to be able to afford to have smaller class sizes, but I agree that with Peter that, you know, I trust that our teachers can handle it, but I would support to give them more support with paras, with additional paras, because I think that there are some teachers in the elementaries that have para support because they have special education children in their classrooms, but then there are others who don't. And it's very hard not to have a second pair of hands in the classroom. That's just my position.
I'm going to really quickly, and then I'll come back since we've had a turn already. And I agree with kind of what's been said here. I don't disagree that we're approaching caution area. I think it's a little early in the game to add something though, but I would definitely be amenable to looking at this again down the road, so I will not be supporting this particular motion.
And I totally understand why people aren't supporting it. I just, 2 years ago I went, or 3 years ago I went for 2 kindergarten teachers, so I figured I'd go up a year.
I know you did. And we know you did, Brian. We know you did.
But I do think it is a very important issue, and I wanted
We
the
agree.
discussion out there, and I want us to really look at this very closely, because honestly, in the lower grades, numbers seem to be going up from what I've personally witnessed, and I like if we can get more pairs in the classroom, great, but I don't think that's the answer, because I only say that because my pairs are never in my classroom because they're always polled elsewhere, and that happens in all schools. So I don't think that's the answer, but I would love to see more pairs, and I started out as a para, so I have
Special affinity.
yeah. I've been polled many places. I was in 3 schools in 1 year.
Tammy, did you have something else?
Yes, I am going to take a little bit of an alternate discussion here. I do not understand this discussion that's happening. I'm very, very surprised by it. I'm very disappointed in it. I think that keeping this class size at 23 with these 6- and 7-year-olds not only does a disservice to these students, but also to our teachers. And our teachers are telling us this is too much. There are too many things happening in the classroom that need to be dealt with. I completely agree with Brian that paraeducators are so important in our district, but we all know they are the first to be pulled when there is a teacher that's out and they don't have a sub, or if there's something else happening where a paraeducator needs support. And then we're going to be leaving these classrooms without any support. I see that you guys have made this decision probably before we even came into this room, and I absolutely appreciate the work that has been done by the superintendent and the administrative team in putting together a budget that is going to work for this town. I am always going to fight for our students and what is best for them, and I absolutely do not believe that 23 first graders in a classroom where you have this decision, when we have these issues with these kids in these classrooms and they're not able to deal with this for this first grade class, especially considering all the issues that we have today, and someone who is in the schools a lot. I'm very, very concerned that we do not address these issues when they are younger, because we can't do it when they're older. It's just too late. So I am supporting adding the teachers. I really hope that others will as well.
Any other discussion?
Angie?
Eileen?
Just a point, and you say you can modify it during the year, but for kindergarten, first graders and second graders, young kids, they establish a rapport with their teachers, and yeah, we've done it before at Northville, where we had to break a class and reconfigure the class after the school year started, but I would so like to see this set up and have the kids come in, bond with their first grade teacher in a ideally 18-person classroom, and not have to break it up again like we did a couple years in Northville. It was tough to break up, it was tough for the kids, and it was tough for the parents, who goes where, and I think this just should be settled before school starts in September, and to settle it, to me, would be to include it now in the budget.
I appreciate that. I disagree. We do have an opportunity before September. We're always reviewing our budget. We'll take a look at this again in June. We've had those opportunities. So to say that we're automatically breaking something up in September, I think is inaccurate. We're constantly looking at our numbers. We are early on in this stage. We've heard from many community members that we hear every single year, add this, add this, add this, and they're not wrong. They're not. Everything means something to somebody, as we heard. There's a lot of validity, but our job is to come up with something that we can collaborate with. I agree with what everyone said. I disagree with the fact that some decisions were made before, you walk in. It's a budget process. That's why I asked you to clarify your number and where you were going to take away from, in all fairness. So I think that's a disservice to say that everybody's just kind of, in the game. So it's not that I personally take it lightly. I look at it a little bit differently. It wasn't a recommendation from the superintendent's budget, not that it has to be, because our job is to modify it and change it. But this is something that, I think that it's a discussion that's ongoing. And we've done this. This is not something new. We've done this in the past where we've moved things around. So I know it's disappointing not to get it out of the gate, but I don't think that these conversations and other conversations that we may get into mean that because we have them tonight means that we're not going to have them in the future. It's a long process.
My point was that we don't know what enrollment is during the year, and then if we come up in December and have 26 kids, then we break up a class.
Right. Well, we have, and we've also added,
Yeah,
and we try and do that as early on as we can, and that's why we've had meetings over the summer as well.
Yeah, but it's traumatic.
It is,
for first
there's
graders
no
to do
doubt that we would all like to see, I think, all of us like to see smaller
Set.
classroom sizes. I think I can speak on behalf of the entire board on that we would like to see that. Absolutely.
And I would just echo Wendy's sentiment. I mean, for me, this conversation is not over. I mean, I think we can come back and look at this in June and July. We did have that unfortunate situation, but we have a different board now. We have a different superintendent now. So hopefully, we have meetings in the summer where we didn't then. We can stay on top of that a little more. But for me, this discussion is not over. So any other discussion on this topic?
So so if we look at it in June or July, how do we finance that? Because we've already got a budget passed. Where do we get the money from in June or July to finally add a first grade teacher at Hill and Plain?
Because when you go ahead and adjust your final numbers, you can always change line items around. So you have an opportunity. And there's not a lot of fluff in this budget. That's why we're going to have conversations all night long, because we're struggling. We're struggling. And so every time when you're adding one position, it's a long conversation because it's not easy. So I think that we have in the past, we have looked at the salary line account, we've moved things around, we've certainly done it. Is it easy? No. It wasn't easy years ago when we've done it, but we've always found a way to take from this line item to move to another to make it work if the conversation is there, and it has been there, we've done it. So I don't think this is the last we're going to see of this budget.
I don't think so either, yeah. I think it's the start of a conversation.
Correct. Any other discussion? Okay, so just to be clear, especially for the new folks, we are voting on the amendment to increase the superintendent's recommended budget by $120,000 to add 2 first grade teachers.
Is it 120?
No,
Are you
it's
considering
175.
Are we including the,
I heard from Anthony, isn't it 173?
His motion was for 120.
Oh, okay.
but you're okay to it being,
I'm sorry?
Here's the answer, if you want to add the benefits in.
If you want to revise the motion to the placeholder
Yes.
that we have been using for teacher salaries in this budget and the benefit amount.
Is that what you want to do, Brian?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, do we have to amend it then? Does somebody need
he's
to
just-
amend it?
You don't.
no,
Just add it.
he's
don't
just
have to.
clarifying it.
You don't have to, but if you were to amend it to like I said, the placeholders for a teacher in 2021 budget with the health insurance benefits, for both of those, the amount would have to be $175,834.
Okay, all in favor of the motion? Okay. All opposed? Okay, that's everyone. Any further discussion on the budget? Eileen?
Okay, I'll make an amendment to look at drop the interscholastic athletics at Scotticoke Middle School in terms of $70,447.
So you're decreasing by $70,447, correct?
Dropping that position.
For the intramural at Scotticoke? Okay.
You need a second on that, and then you could speak on it.
Anyone second?
I'll second it for the discussion.
Second for discussion? Thank you.
That's basically my point, and I want to discuss this and look at it. I'm challenging Bill Dahl, and it's a lot of money to put out there for interscholastic athletics at the middle school. My thought was, look at what the sports are covered and do some after-school sports, we'd pay stipends then. I have the list of, we're not throwing them away, I have the list of Park and Rec activities they have here. They have 14 sports in their youth program and 1 craft sports. And then we have the town sports. We have the baseball, the Pop Warner football, cheerleaders, basketball, soccer, and 1 other, swimming, I think it was. So there's, we're not taking things away from the kids. We're redirecting them to the Park and Rec town committee and let go there, and there's possibilities. And we can include the kids are really interested in sports by doing some intramural sports coaching, which includes stipends, rather than this $70,447. So that would be my point. Again, it's a start of a discussion, but I think that's a very important thing to look at.
Joe?
I don't have my finger on that number right now, but the number of students we have that compete in track at that school is significant. We try to run this balance between health and well-being and for those who can participate, physical activity. And we're starting down this road, and you've all heard me say this, of getting away from that physical education. The requirements of the high school are getting cut to put people in a classroom to understand other things. On top of the physical activity, the teamwork, the structure, following rules, working and competing for those who can, is such a part of the education process. And I think here we too often want to remove that part of the whole education process, the physical education, the sports, the intramural, the interscholastic. And I think it's a dangerous road to attempt to go down, to put students in a classroom, sit there and not have them be active. Don't we have the president's requirements for the 1 mile run that every high schooler has to go through? Almost every high school, those who are able. The minute we start to forget that physical activity, competition, and so on is a part of the education process, we go down a very, very bad path. So I could not possibly agree with that decrease.
Anyone else? Okay.
I also feel that cutting interscholastics it's a mistake because, number one, it brings the school together for school spirit. The kids have activities right after school, so for many kids that have working parents, they can't afford to be going back home and then going to another sport. We also offer the after-school bus, which a lot of kids take advantage of that do sports. And it's also a feed program for our high school. So I would be cautious because it would hurt also our sports program in the high school. I fear.
Right.
I think I can't support this either, and I'm sorry that I can't, but I do think it is worth discussion because I do think when we get down the line and if our budget is cut and much more, we may be looking at changes like this. So I thank you for bringing that out there because we are at a bare bones budget, but I definitely can't support that because, the cross-country team and the track team have really, those kids were tremendous last year. I also had friends who were running on that team, and that they're going up into the high school and they're competing as freshmen at a high level. So I can't support that.
Eileen?
Okay, well, my point was to start this discussion.
Sure.
Running is included in one of the youth activities at Park and Rec, and, just that. And I'm not suggesting we not do it. I'm suggesting we do it in terms of intramurals and have it a stipend coach position. So instead of spending the $70,000, they spend $5,000 just on transportation. to get these kids here and there at the Sarah Noble, Scotticoke level. So it's a conversation, and I think it's a interesting thing to think about. The after-school bus, they're still going to get it if they're in intramurals. They'll still need the after-school bus, and they'll still be in the same place. And we can do, for 70,000, we can do a lot of stipends. Do you also, it's an interesting thing I was looking at, this coaches, the intramural sports at Scotticoke get about $1,000 less stipend money than they do at here at Sarah Noble, which is interesting. But clubs, running clubs, evaluate it and see where the kids are, what's big, what's happening. Do a couple coaches there and do some intramurals instead of this 70,000 in the budget line. So they increase the stipends in the budget there in Sarah Noble and Scotticoke. So.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion to amend the superintendent's proposed budget by decreasing it $70,447 for the purpose of elimination of interscholastic sports? All in favor? And opposed? Any other discussion? Okay, I would like to make a motion to amend the superintendent's proposed budget by decreasing it $290,000 in object code 53200 to eliminate the full ESS program. It will leave the half program to be determined by administration where that would go.
I'll second that.
If I could speak to that,
That's 53200, is
Correct.
that the code?
Correct.
290,000?
290,900.
What page is this on?
I'm sorry?
What page?
It is in the pupil,
Thank you.
page 50, I think. Yes, page 50. So, budget cycle is always rough. I've spent hours and hours and hours in this book trying to find ways that we can have a happy medium of supporting education as much as we can, but also getting a budget that the voters will pass. I looked at what we spend and the number of students that it affects. The ESS program, while I'm sure it has done many, many things in a positive light for students, the amount we spend on that for the number of student it impacts is not something that we can sustain. It was supposed to decrease our out-of-district placements. Our placements have been flat for about 6 years, so I don't see that going down. We've added a lot of socio-emotional staff to the district to help support these students. And I just think for the bang we get for our buck, this program is not worth it. I looked at this program in other districts. We are one of very few districts in the state of Connecticut that have it. The districts that do are districts like Greenwich and Wilton. We are not those districts. This is not a normal program that districts around us offer. It is a want, it is not a need, in my opinion. And so therefore I'm proposing we cut the full program that would leave the half program so they could put it wherever they needed it. Brian?
I disagree. It's an absolute need today. I've been, I'm a special education. I've been teacher. I've been teaching for 20 years, and the kids are coming to us with some very complex social emotional problems. And I'm looking at kids who I'm teaching now who wouldn't have been in my program 20 years ago because they weren't the type of kids that would have been in my program 20 years ago. These are kids who I don't know how to describe it, but they're really kids who they present with high anxiety that I didn't see 20 years ago. The anxiety, the kids I was working with were more trauma-based. And these kids are just, there's anxiety from that you can't imagine that I see in the schools. And I know of one student in particular who came back to district, to ESS, which is saving $60,000 a year for that one student. So if that program keeps 5 kids out of $60,000 program, I disagree with it. I just think schools need more programs like ESS, not less, personally.
Tammy, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, okay, the ESS program, to what I understood, was a cost savings program. So for the amount that we were spending on it here meant that we weren't needing to outplace these high anxiety kids to other districts. That was costing upwards of $1 million. Are my numbers right? Because that's what was explained to us when we started this program.
So when we initially brought ESS into the school district, we did bring back 3 students, I believe, from out-of-district placements. It is not a cost savings anymore, it's a cost avoidance. And in terms of, we have been able to maintain and keep students in district rather than placing them out because of the ESS program. We also have not increased our social workers at the high school because of the ESS program. So there are things that are not as obvious because the program's in its 4th year, and so you don't see that quite as significant impact because it's more cost avoidant at this point.
So what, I'm sorry, Laura, how many kids are currently in the ESS program at the high school? Because we're talking about, what's the half program? Is that the one at the middle school you're
Right.
talking about? Okay, so we're talking about the one at the high school. How many kids are currently in there?
There's 14 with 1 referral I received yesterday, so there would be 15.
Okay, so if we were to do away with the ESS program, and by the way, I think being able to keep our own kids in our own district with their classmates who they have gone through school with is a much better way to quell their anxiety than moving them to a different district and then trying to eventually transition them back into our school, which I know in and of itself can trigger high anxiety. So what are we going to do then with these 15 kids? Are we outplacing them? And how much is that going to cost us? I don't understand. I mean, I think I need that question answered before I think we could even further this discussion. Does anybody know? So we just abandon the program and throw the kids back into the high school?
The kids were in the high school to begin with.
And they were having major anxiety, which meant that they were possibly going to be outplaced, which was going to cost us quite a bit of money.
But the outplacement has been flat for 6 years. That's 2 years before this program started. I have not seen a decrease in the outplacements for the cost we're doing for 16 students. I'm sorry.
Because we were able to keep them. You haven't seen outplacements because we've been able to keep them
But
in
we
our high
had,
school.
but there should be a dip, is what I'm saying. We should have less outplacements if our argument is we're bringing them back, but we still have the same number. It's been consistent for 6 years, so we're not bringing anybody back.
But we currently have 15 kids that are being serviced, high anxiety kids. And
We don't know their needs. I mean, there could be we don't know their needs. They're not all special ed students.
They don't have to be special ed students. These are not autistic kids. These are not intellectually disabled children. These are kids who have high anxiety, who oftentimes can't make it in the front door of their high school because the anxiety is so bad that they can't even function in that type of an environment. So my question is, what are we doing to these 15 kids in August? Where are they going to go? I guess I'm assuming we're going to push them back into the New Milford High School and then deal with them on a one-to-one basis to decide who needs to be outplaced and then who needs to tough it out. I can't support this. I can't. We cannot do that to these students.
Right.
I guess I'm just shocked because it's really early to discuss cutting a program. This budget hasn't even gone to the town council or to the Board of Finance. So I'm not sure why we're talking. I mean, I understand the meaning of your motion. I just think it's too early for it, and I think it's too early to cut a program that's benefiting so many students, and it is cost avoidance. So And I think it looks good on the New Milford schools that we have the ESS program. So I think it's too early to have this but I mean, well, obviously we are, but I think maybe if we're in June and we were had our backs against the wall and we had to get a budget done, then maybe I would discuss it then. But I mean, and obviously I'm discussing it now, but I'm just surprised.
Eileen? Can you state if there's more students coming in and that's why we're not seeing a dip? You know, Angie's saying we haven't seen a dip yet, but are we identifying more students with high anxiety and hence the numbers go up, which we wouldn't be sending out of district?
So the mental health needs are increasing, not just within our district, but within the nation. I've mentioned that before. One of the issues with the out-of-district numbers right now is that you're not seeing a dip due to a number of factors, and one of them is the ESS program. We aren't sending as many students out at the high school level due to mental health issues because of this program. Everything is a risk. It's a high-cost program, there's no doubt. But you know, I stand behind the data. I believe Mr. Shagru and Dr. Longo do what they do as well. So it's I guess it's how much risk you want to take. If, you know, as I said earlier, we've always been able to maintain our out-of-district numbers and our costs. We've come close before, but we've never gone over. So it would be a risk for the board.
Question. The motion is to leave half of the program in place. So it's not eliminating the program.
A third of the program.
A third. So it still has the concept out there that we can work with. Am I missing that somewhere? Or, you know, that it is not eliminating the program. It's modifying the dollars amounts allocated to it.
But then we could create what that half looks like for us at New Milford, whether it be the high needs. And we haven't had this conversation, so I'm not sure, Laura, but I'm like, if we
And I'm not trying to put you on, that is not my intention to put you on the spot at all, you know.
I'm just saying that I'm sure that if there's something, then we could address the needs of the students. It's not being eliminated.
So you would be going from 25 students
That's exactly
down
was
to
my,
9,
okay,
basically.
okay.
And then we would have to really adjust that in terms of where's the highest need. Is it at our middle school? Is it at our high school? You certainly can't spread a .5 position between two buildings.
Right.
So we would have to look at that as well. So there definitely would be, I don't want to say watered down, but it definitely would not be able to deliver the quality of the services that we are right now, but.
I have a question. Is this program, like, is it an outside entity that's running the program for us?
It is.
So is there any way to do this program in-house, less expensive? Because we've had it now for 3 years.
Right.
And can we train some of our staff to run this program less expensive?
That's certainly a possibility. We would have to hire that staff, those staff people. Right now, they're licensed clinical, one is a licensed clinical family therapist, and one I believe is a licensed clinical social worker. So the caliber of what we have I'm speaking right now of the high school.
Sure.
But the caliber of the clinicians is high. The other factor is that they're exclusive to those 18 students, whereas if you brought in a certified staff member, a social worker, hired one within from the Board of Ed, what often happens is their services bleed into other students. And I mean that in terms of there'll be another student who might have needs, aren't part of that 18, and all of a sudden they're pulled in lots of directions is what I really mean, rather than just exclusively to those students in ESS. They have their own supervision, they have their own ongoing training, they train our staff. You know, I understand it's a difficult decision, but there is value to it.
Just one more thing. I mean, we have left off the budget that was proposed this year. We have a social worker who's left off the budget. That would be a regular building social worker. You know, there's a special education credit recovery, special education department chair. I mean, we're not hiring these people now, and if we cut this program, we're all of a sudden going to hire them to start a program, which is already off the ground. it'll probably end up costing more, I would think. I mean, it's obvious that I don't support this, so I mean, I don't have any more to say. I'm just astounded.
Any other discussion?
I'll jump in. I know it's a very difficult discussion. It's a difficult discussion for you to bring some amendments forward for all of us to do that. I am not in favor of just saying we're going to eliminate this program at this time. I don't see that. And I think that we do have to make some hard choices. And I agree that when we look at all of the other items that didn't make the list, and the ones that we're trying to hold on to, or the ones we're trying to add, it's difficult to cover everything, but we're here to educate everyone and cover as much of this as we can, and deliver something that shows that we've really gone through this, and whether we've added or subtracted, we've done the best that we can. I know it's difficult, and I think that if we have a way to at least exercise this program and move forward, then I would consider this motion, because we have to make some choices.
One last comment, if you don't mind. And I don't think we need to make this choice at this point. I think because I think we could present this budget as a bare bones budget where it's a cost of living adjustment I'm using the wrong terminology. But the majority of this budget is in salaries, and the increases in salaries and benefits. And so it's really, we don't have a big budget here to present. And I think what we have could be supported, or should be supported, where it is, at a 2.85 increase. And I would love to see this go to the town council, and I really think it should go to the town council as is, and then go to the people as is. And, we'll make the adjustment later on if we have to. I'll be more amenable about this in May or June than I am right now. Now, I strongly don't agree with this at this point. This is putting stuff on the fire. This is a fire sale if we get rid of this program at this point.
Eileen?
Could you repeat the numbers in the motion that?
290,900.
That's what you're reducing?
Correct.
Okay.
And what page is this on?
Page 50.
50. Okay, my point is, okay, that's 290,000, but I can give you 100,000 by taking away the practical arts teacher. And
I don't see why we need to talk about taking away any at this point.
I
I think we wait and see what happens with the town council.
But I wouldn't favor this
Sorry,
motion.
I don't mean to interrupt.
No, that's right. But, it's all discussion, and where we prioritize things, and I would put a much higher priority on keeping this program 15 kids at the high school, and then a practical arts teacher at Scotticoke.
Did you have your hand up?
Don't do this to these kids. These are kids who have an opportunity to go and be something in our society. If we do not deal with these kids, we are throwing them to the wolves. Please don't do this. I can't believe we're talking about this. It's so upsetting. I mean, these are 15 kids who have high anxiety that we are able to keep in our district and serve and service them and get them back to functioning young adults in our schools. And we are going to disable this program for them. And it's going to be disastrous for them. That's it.
Any other discussion? So voting on the amendment to decrease the superintendent's budget by 290,900 to reduce the ESS program. All in favor? And opposed? Any other discussion?
Motion is closed. Anthony, can you update us?
Just with that increase amendment, the budget now stands at $65,552,693. And we are no longer at a 282, we are at a 236 as the percent increase.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could you repeat the budget, 65?
Sure. 65,552,693. That's a-
2.36.
That's a 2.36, yes.
Any other discussion?
I'll do a capital clarification,
Okay.
if I may. I'll make an amendment to reduce the revenue line in capital, which I think is BZZ 2684649,599, and I'll reduce that in the amount of, I believe it's $525,200. In the, I beg your pardon, in the revenue line. I beg your pardon, in the revenue line, I'd like to reduce the revenue line by $525,200. And tied to that same amendment is by decreasing the line items in the 5-year capital plan through the BZZ accounts to match accordingly. And I'll need a second to at least discuss it.
Second.
Okay. This has no budgetary impact. Unfortunately, it doesn't lower the budget or add to the budget. It's really just taking a revenue and zeroing it out against an expenditure. I think that the administration and their team did the proper thing by putting in all of these items so that the board could have this discussion and take a look at it. It's not that these items are not necessary or important, but I believe that some of them have district-wide initiatives, and we're not even sure where we're going to be with some of these expenditures. And I do think that we can come back and take the capital and do separate requests to the town rather than just, approving these expenditures, and if the budget goes through, doing it this way. I think we should look at these individually. I think that we did it this past year, and although it can be rather cumbersome, we were able to secure I believe, $322,000 from our capital through that process. And I would hope that the board does examine this and go through it. I'm also hopeful that with some of these expenditures, we can continue the collaboration. We can look at some type of possible other revenue sources, whether it be a lower bonding level, request for some of these expenditures. By taking the requests and staggering them even more, my concern is we have $661,000 in the capital reserve, and by doing this, we're committing to $525,000, and I think that is very dangerous, and I'm just not comfortable with it.
So just for clarification, are you talking about all the ones under the black line in this page?
I'm looking about the entire 5-year capital plan in the
thing.
year that we'll go back and revisit as we did last year,
Push them out.
take a look at them. Not push them out, because we actually we were able to have our expenses or our project done this past year through that. But I just think that to say that we're going to commit to $525,000 worth of capital expenditures is something that would technically could leave a very low balance in there. And I do appreciate the notation on the budget where it was noted that they were, even though the line item was showing 0, that they were accessed, those projects were eventually funded. There was a notation to that.
If I could pick up on that, because if everybody's looking for where else are these items, other than the 5-year
Yes.
capital page, The ones for facilities and maintenance are on page 58 of the budget book. That's where it is in total, not by individual project, and that represents $325,700. And then the technology items that were slated to come from the 5-year capital are located on page 73, and that's for $199,500.
Which makes the total that was...
Which totals the $525,200, but for those people wanting to follow along in the actual tabbed book version, where it is on those pages, separate from just the 5-year plan.
So in the past, we have the revenue side that we draw from our capital reserve. You know, we use our capital, that is a revenue stream, and that when we put our 5-year capital plan in, we take that budget year line item and we draw from our capital reserve. And if this budget is accepted, then it is with the intent that we're going to go ahead and go through all of these. And I'm not saying we shouldn't. We actually did most of them, if not all of them, from last year. We had a revised list, but we had 2 separate times that we went to capital, I believe. One was over the summer and one was in September that we drew it from.
The last one was in October.
Okay.
It went to our board in September, then went to town council, and then Board of Finance on October 9th, 2019.
Was that 320?
The total at that time was $352,500.
So we were able to fund those projects, but we paused it and took a look at, you know, what we were doing and why we were doing it. And I just think that we should follow that process this year. This is no budget impact. I mean, if the board would like to keep it the way it is, I'm fine with it. I just am a little nervous about our capital reserve being so committedly low. And I think we should look at it item by item. And there's a risk here because you have to go through the operations and the board, then the town council, then the Board of Finance, but those are what some consider checks and balances. So I would just like to put a pause on that again. But I think they should be in the budget. I thought they absolutely should have been listed, and the board should have had an opportunity to have this discussion, which is what we're doing.
Any other discussion? Tim?
I agree that our capital is too low. It's I think the lowest that we've seen it in a while, and because of our budget situations year over year that have constantly been cut, we have not been able to add that money back in to be able to take care of some very critical things. I'm very sad about this, even though I will be supporting it, because everything on here is so needed. When I look at the Chromebooks that I know our kids use every single day, I know they do. I know that they do, and I know that a lot of times these carts are being rolled into the classrooms and many of them do not work, and kids are left to have to share or bring in their own or whatever. I'm really, regarding all of our capital here, all of these different things that we have going on here, not only in the technology, but also some of these HVAC issues or security enhancements. These things are really, really important, and we need to partner with our town. We need to partner with our town council, and we need to let them know that our buildings need help and our capital can't support it. And we need to take care of these items, and I think that we need to sit down and prioritize what really needs to be done before we start the new year, so that we can at least get some of these things accomplished, but we cannot deplete our capital. That is a very scary thing for us to do. God forbid something happens and we need it. So for that reason alone, I will be supporting this motion.
Brian?
I'll be supporting it too, because this, when I looked at the capital, the two things, the first graders and the capital situation, both were the ones that upset me, concerned me the most in this budget, so I'll be supporting it, because we need to keep our capital.
Joe?
You've heard me say over the years, I get very concerned about getting our capital numbers so low. I mean, and this, in all the years I've been involved, would be the lowest it's ever been. The upside is, and there's nobody that picks on the town council more than I do. But the upside is we have a good relationship with the mayor and the town council, and if we work with them on collaborating on these projects, we do it from a positive aspect and a moving forward aspect, as opposed to us reducing this down to almost $100,000, have something critical go on, and then we're all over at town hall seeing if we can work from the other end of trying to get them to help us out if some major projects. So I'd rather be on the positive end of this, work with the mayor and the council, and they're wonderful people.
I had looked at partially, making an adjustment in this, but I think that all of these line items are something that, we did do this last year. We looked at it line by line. We had modified capital requests that we sent over to the town. We were able to pick up some things that the town had worked with the Board of Ed on, and we were able to have those funded through other sources. And I think we do need that collaboration, and it's time to really push on that, and where we can take some of these funds from our capital and push them back into the educational side of the budget. And so I just think that we need to slow down on this piece. And that's all I'll say on it.
Anyone else? Okay, so we're voting to decrease the revenue by $525,000 to reduce.
200.
Oh, $525,200, which is tied to the capital. So all in favor? That's everyone.
The budget number still stands.
Correct. Any other discussion? Okay, I would like to make another motion to decrease the object 51-115, which is the English salary, certified salary at the high school, in the amount of, here's, my number's correct here, $87,417.
Page 5115.
Page 32. It is to reduce, well, Anthony's looking at the number, it is to reduce the offset of the SAT English. We're eliminating the math, which will eliminate the position, or the program, so we might as well get rid of the English teacher as well.
Page 32.
Can I get a second?
Second, I'm sorry.
Okay, any discussion?
So
Go ahead.
this is not tied to a specific person, correct? It's just removed
No,
one
no
FTE.
person.
So that amount with the placeholder amount for benefits and salaries is $87,917.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I would like to know the reason behind just arbitrarily getting rid of an English teacher. What is the reasoning behind it?
So we got rid of the math teacher for the SAT class, so their corresponding is the English, it was an English and math kind of component.
But do they just teach, do those two teachers just teach those AP classes, or those, I'm sorry, those SAT classes? Is that all that they do?
That is my understanding. Is that correct, Dr. Parker?
I don't know. I knew the
Mr.
math
Sugar?
side of it. I don't know the language arts.
We offer 7 sections on each side of math and in English, so yes, to answer your question, yes.
So it's just reducing that, since the program's going away, it was just reducing the teacher that taught that class.
And it is going to be offered after school, but differently.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mr. Vela?
This overall is hard for me, because I do not like to see this SAT prep course eliminated, but I understand the hard choices. As much as I don't like it, I sometimes do things I don't like.
Any other discussion?
I often
Go ahead, Jody.
No, I'm talking to myself. I often do things I don't
Okay.
like. This would be one of them.
Mr. Sugar, is this going to be a hardship for, are we going to be increasing students in English classes? I mean, can you explain to me a little bit about why we eliminated the math? Was there a reason that we eliminated the math, that we didn't eliminate the, or was it an oversight? I'm just looking for some
It wasn't
clarification.
an oversight, it was a discussion that was, that I had with Ms. Baldelli and Dr. Parker. That option was also discussed. but not presented as a cut.
Will it present a hardship? Will it be a hardship for our students in the English program, is what I'm trying to get at. Is it going to create, is it going to increase
By
class?
eliminating the SAT prep sections, those sections, now that, those will be gone, and then we'll just focus on the rest of the course offerings in the program study for English.
Can I explain that? When we were looking at, we knew we had 2 bilingual positions to fill that were mandated. And so in a normal, how you look at your staff, it appeared that we were going to have 1 FTE from Sarah Noble. That could be the FTE used for one of those bilingual teachers. And then we had an opening at the high school. And before we filled that opening, I asked Mr. Shagru if that was an area that we could absorb. And he said no, that he really would like to fill that position, but he may have a couple of other areas where he would, our goal is not to eliminate someone, it would be to absorb an opening, to get that other FTE. So my conversation with him and Ms. Baldelli was to say, do you have an FTE that I could have where we wouldn't fill it to fill, and so I didn't want to take all his FTEs, I just said, do you have an extra FTE? And he said we could go with that math, because by doing that, I was able to present to the board that we need 2 bilingual teachers, and I had the 2 FTEs to cover it.
And I understand that. Before I vote on this, I just want a clear understanding that this is, sorry, did I?
I know, I said right.
Oh, okay.
No,
I'm sorry, I
hear
thought I
you.
overtalked somebody.
No, you're good.
Are we creating a hardship? Is this going to create a problem at the high school? And the reason I ask this is because, let's face it, the high school has been hit over the past couple of years. I've had a part in it, the board has had a part in it, okay, but I want to make sure that the high school is taken care of. So is this going to create a hardship now in the English area? Because it seems to me that if you're eliminating the SAT, then why wouldn't you have automatically taken that? I mean, it's not that you're saying, oh, I don't want to take too much away from this school. It's something that's not needed. So it shouldn't be a problem taking it away, but that wasn't done. So I'm just trying to understand why we didn't ask that question. The board is going to ask, if you're taking the math because you're eliminating it, why aren't you taking the English? And I'm trying to get a sense of, because we really felt that English kids are struggling in English, because we felt that maybe these teachers can support the EL community. I'm just trying to get that sense before I make this decision. If you are comfortable with it, then
I honestly, my lack of knowledge, I thought in the SAT prep, they were teaching the entire SAT prep. I didn't know it was math specific and language arts specific. So that's an error on my not knowing the program.
So we're comfortable.
I was comfortable with the math absorption. I thought we were.
Right. I know you're going to. And to
Yeah,
your
I'm
point,
trying-
No, to
okay.
your point, Tammy, I appreciate that, because when this conversation began, I think some of us had that thought, well, where's the other piece? So that's very fair. I think that was a question. So I don't think that anybody, again, sat here and said we're comfortable with everything. We're just trying to come across with it starts at the administrative level in their team of presenting something to the board of saying what can we move around, how we can reallocate, what is the best use, and move some things around. But I think that question did come up.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of amending superintendents to decrease 87,917 for the SAT English? Okay, opposed? Update?
Sure. The new budget number is $65,464,776. Your increase. Yep, 776, and your increase percentage year over year is now at a 2.22%.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion?
65.
Sure, I can repeat again. $65,464,776. 2.22.
Wasn't on the page.
Any other discussion? Okay, I need a motion to adopt the 2021 Board of Education budget by approving the superintendent's proposed budget as amended in the amount of $65,464,776.
Second.
I need a second.
You said,
Oh,
Joe second. Joe.
Okay.
Did Angie make the motion?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll make the motion. Any discussion? Tammy?
So are we there? Nobody has any
It's
other?
up to you guys.
I am really disappointed at what we've done here today. I will not be supporting this budget. I don't see how we would sell this to our families in our town. I'm just, in my 4 years of being on the board, I've never been so disappointed in a budget that we put forward, and I cannot sign on to this, and I cannot support it, and I will not be supporting it.
Brian?
Just the cutting of the ESS program as it has been done. I personally know one student who fitted greatly from it, and I think if you can help one student, I can't support it just based upon that, so I won't support this.
Eileen?
I agree. High school years are so precarious in the first place to not have services for, at this point, 15 kids, students with high anxiety and special needs, and have that cut out is just beyond me. So I won't support it.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Unopposed? Okay, I need a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:49.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?